We are. No, I'm not rotating my phone. I hope this works. Y'all let me know if I am crooked, but that's going to be... Oh,
And should I be looking out there?
it's right there. Say hi, we're live.
Hi, we're live. Well, mostly.
I know, he keeps saying that. I'm just like, are you count 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot in here?
You know, the ashes and dust to dust. They're going to blow away, but
Yeah.
hopefully.
Right. Everybody, hey everybody, it's Phyllis Reed, and it is, would you tell me, hey love, would you tell me, are we this way, or are you having to look at us that way? Tell me, give me a thumbs up if we have to adjust our camera position. Facebook is fucking with me on all types of ways, but I'm just not going. So this is my last Facebook Live, because I'm going to YouTube, because it is much easier to not fight with the bots. But I brought this brother on because I've been trying to get to him for a while, and they were like, well, we're not ready yet. But now they got their papers. You know what we mean by our papers? We have brochures. So I said, oh, you official now, so come out and talk to me.
Here I am.
Here I am. This is Dickson Dangers, great name, and his story we're going to get into, but he's got a product that I want you to know about. And so let's start with the construction behind us.
Well, the product we are talking about live is our brand is Panacea, but it's Carbon 60, C60.
Look at that little thing right there. That's a buckyball, and we're going to talk about a buckyball and what that is.
Well, it's called a buckyball, among other things, because Buckminster Fuller theorized that, and he was the designer of the geodesic dome and a lot of other things, a visionary genius. But he looked at, physics and said, there's got to be this atom or a molecule that has 60 carbon atoms. And that's what the buckyball is. That's what the carbon 60 molecule is.
All right.
It's
And where does the carbon, is it an element carbon that's on the planet, or does it come from someplace else?
Well, that's interesting. What we ingest is carbon 60 that's made generally from carbon rods. And it's a very expensive process. There's, and I've been researching this lately, there's 5 different methods, but primarily one, which is arcing 4,000 degree, it's like using a welding torch on carbon rods, which makes a pile of ash, soot, carbon 60, carbon 54, carbon 70. They all have different properties.
Right. Okay.
Then they have to go through a very expensive process to get it down to where it's approximately 99.9, 99.5% pure. Then to make it ingestible, it has to be coated with a liposomal coating, to allow it to get through the liver and then distributed to the body, where it can be active for a couple weeks.
Okay. So it is absorbable at that level when it's in the oil. It doesn't have to have any other process to, like vitamins. We know we take vitamins, but we pee out most of them. So because of the oils, it's sticking.
Yeah, it's not just putting it in a blender with the powder, and though it's a fancy blender, we use, and most people use, magnetic stirrers, which create a magnetic field, and they have magnetic stir bars, and it creates a little vortex. And that causes a dispersion of the C60 powder or dust, to where you have it spread out into tens of thousands of active carbon 60 molecules coated in oil.
Okay, all right. So that's how the body will accept it and receive it. And it'll last in the system, you said, a couple weeks?
Sometimes more.
Really? Okay.
It's sort of is very active,
Right.
and the longer it's stirred, and it can also be agitated with the sonicator.
Okay, that sounds a little technical. Let's go back.
Okay.
Why do we want to use it?
Well, the primary reason is it is the most powerful antioxidant / free radical scavenger on the planet, and off.
And off. All right.
I say and off because it's so powerful. Back in 1919, astronomers discovered dust in space, stardust.
Right, I've heard this.
And they weren't able to discern what it was until 4 years ago, 2015. That's when they discovered these diffuse interstellar bands of dust are carbon-60. It's the only molecule that can exist out in space.
Okay, yeah.
And it's also, they've found that on a very small level, carbon-60 can mark diamonds, which is another allotrope of carbon. But on the hardness scale in geology, diamonds are the hardest.
Right.
Now we found something harder.
Harder than diamonds. Okay, well,
And yet
can
it's
I wear it?
it's more of a it's a little harder to get it into the crystalline structure.
Okay. But it's mainly then a powder that you are infusing in the oil and we're ingesting it that way. So what's it do for us?
Well, being the most powerful, 172 times more than vitamin C, free radical scavenger, it's going through the body and bonding with free radicals, which are when we have any sort of stress, but chemical stress, this, that, and the other, our cells break down.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the most important aspects of C60 is when we have free radicals attacking our chromosomes, our body no longer replicates the way it did. You know, when I was 13, I looked much different than I do now. It's because years and years of oxidative stress.
Right. Yeah.
C60 stops it in many ways.
All right, so
And in some ways reverses it.
that's the part we like. Okay, we like that reversing thing. It is, it's been only around then for that we've been able to access it and use it for the last 4 years. So it's a,
No.
okay, longer.
4 years ago is when the astronomers discovered the dust in space.
Okay. So it's been around.
Buckminster Fuller, getting
right.
back to where we started,
Right.
theorized this back in the end of the 70s. And he died around 1980. Well, there was a group of scientists that discovered carbon-60. Yes, it is existing. They later, and that was in 83, they later on received the Nobel Prize in Physics for their discovery, and that was in 1996.
Okay.
People have been, it is primarily used, or it was originally used, as a solid lubricant on very fine machinery, you know, space stations, you know, it's not just rocketry, it's in solar panels, it's everywhere, but it is so strong in its little 60 carbon atom molecule that it's like a ball bearing. But
Interesting.
micro
Okay.
ball bearing.
Sure. So as a lubricant, okay, I get that. But what's it doing to our bodies?
What does it do in our bodies?
Yeah.
Well,
Because we be drinking it.
again, the primary function is it's super powerful free radical scavenging. It's all these loose, broken down with chromosomes, cells.
Okay.
You know, there are all these parts of our system. You know, it's like having a wheel going down the road with a couple of the spokes, you know, broken out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, at some point it's going to break down
Right,
and you're
right.
stuck in the side of the road.
That'd be us. Okay. Yeah.
So it works on the chromosomes. It works on helping, cleaning up the mess of our broken down cells.
Got it.
And everybody likes to talk about the big C, cancer. It's the bane of our age. Because it's so small and powerful, it goes right through the membrane that coats the carbon cells. It goes right inside there and bounces around, and I don't know the mechanism, but it ends up killing cancer cells from the inside, and then the body breaks down the remnants of the...
I want to talk about that. It was one of a visual, I don't know if you brought it with you, of his cancerous tumors, and there were a couple of them. Are they in the brochure?
Yeah.
Look at you.
I am a poster boy for, well, it's a long story how I got involved in this,
Yeah.
but...
Let me do this away. I want to show that. There we go.
Okay.
Close.
I heard about carbon-60 from one of the smartest guys I've ever known.
Right.
And it led me to checking it out.
Right there. See that right there?
Okay,
Right
well,
there.
let's
That's
go
what we
to-
want to look at, those
All right.
things there. All right.
The dark mass up in the top center
Hold it.
was a cancer.
Right there.
I went to the doctor/hospital because I coughed up blood.
Good reason
I
to go.
thought it was a rib problem.
Okay. Ow. You were feeling it.
And right around when I'm finding this out, I had coincidentally ordered C60. I'd read up on it and going, this sounds like amazing stuff.
Okay.
So overlapping, I started taking the C60 about a week before I finally coughed up blood. Getting tests, I found out that the upper dark mass was cancer,
Right.
and then there's another mass
There's
there
two of
that's
them. You see the two arrows that are pointing. And
the,
we'll put
the
it right
lower arrow was a benign tumor.
there. Right. And then there was that one. That was the first one, was
yeah,
the cancer.
that was the cancer.
So then we started taking C60, and then it
In
shrinks.
seven weeks,
Weeks
the cancer up above is gone.
gone. And then that one
And,
starts getting
and the
smaller.
doctors, they brought in specialists going, what could have happened with that? I didn't tell them. I should have. But they said, come back in another 3 months. And, the tumor has shrunk a little bit.
Right.
I came back 3.5 months, and the tumor was gone.
It's clean.
Since then, in our little village here in southern Ecuador, there's been 3 women that have had breast tumors that are no longer with them. And most recently, a woman who works up at the local bar or restaurant, she's a chef, her employer bought her, she got diagnosed with 4th-stage uterine cancer. And her sponsor bought her a bottle for every 2 weeks, basically. Very loving employer.
Right.
And she had done that because she'd given her dog some of the C60 because it was near death.
Right.
And the dog came back and, was very healthy.
For dogs. Okay.
Anyway, so she said, well, I'd like to get this for my employee. The doctors gave up on her, 4th-stage cancer.
Yeah.
Well, she took it for about 4 or 5 weeks. And when they came back and did another test, they found out there's some shrinkage. So, well, if it's working a little bit, let's do more.
Yeah.
So she got a couple more bottles for the next month. Came back, and the next term was there's substantial shrinkage. Another 4 weeks came back, drastically shrunk.
Right.
And then it was about 2 weeks ago, they went in and the cancer's no longer there.
Excellent. So, I'd heard these stories, and I take it as well, and I find that just on a the regular basis, I will look at skin issues or something that will pop up, and I'm like, okay, what's that? And given that I've had cancer twice, I pay attention to the symptoms that my body gives me on like, oh, that's going on again. And for me, I had Hodgkin's lymphoma the first time and lung cancer the second time. And it's my hip that always gives me the warning that something's off, at pain in my hip. And so I know now not to eat sugar or pesticides because that will inflame my hip very quickly. And I'm just like, oh. And cancer is one of those cells that you can turn on and off. And so one of the things that's really nice when you find a product that will just simply latch on, I don't know if it's eating it from the inside, as you're saying, or just turning it off. That was the piece that made me pay attention to it. And cancer is our #1 killer right now on the planet. Heart disease was it, at least for Americans, but now it's cancer. And I left Thailand because in Chiang Mai in particular, it was lung cancer was the #1 cause of death because they were spraying the fields with Monsanto herbicides and pesticides. So in burning season, when the smoke was going, we were getting all of that pesticide in the air and breathing it. And so lung cancer became a thing. But I knew about C60, but I was like, I couldn't get it sent to me without heavy duty and getting out of the country.
Our first bottles we received were over $100 for 100 milliliters.
Yeah, it was expensive. Here. Yeah, and we don't even have postal services here, so it makes it even. So when I heard he was making it, I said, oh, cool. And what made you decide to get into production? Why make it?
Well, I didn't want to spend $107 per bottle when I could get, it is expensive to get the actual C60 powder. Mm-hmm. It's up to $2,000 for 10 grams.
Wow.
But I'm going, I can process this and have it here for half the price.
He has his own lab, y'all. He has a little home lab that he's got going.
Not in my home.
This is make it work.
Yeah, we work at it, and we're getting more and more word of mouth because, cancer's, the big C. But there's been folks with, one woman had 20 plus years of colitis, gone in 2 months.
Wow.
People are taking it for, it just goes on and on, but parasites. There's a whole family, parasites gone, and Roshni. Anyway, I could go on and on with the various things. And the name of our company is...
Panacea.
Panacea.
Which
means in Greek, cure-all.
Okay.
Now, there's nothing that is a cure-all, but I've never come across anything that has reversed, I don't want to say cured, because where is the FDA? Anyway, there's so many things that it's helping. You
have another version. What's this version?
Our littler bottle here is for topical use.
Okay.
We call it Ruby Panacea because the color is reddish.
Ruby,
And it is for topical use.
Okay.
Now, because of the size of the carbon-60 molecule is so small, even though you're putting it on maybe wrinkles or, zits or whatever, skin cancer, the carbon-60 molecule will go in and can actually work at helping conditions that are inside the body.
Okay. So you're still getting it even on as a topical internally. And it's got Palo Santo, essential frankincense. May I smell it?
Yes.
Ooh. Oh my God.
Well, that one.
Oh yeah, very nice.
It is in a base oil, argan oil, which is supposedly like the best for the skin. And it's super absorbable, and very few people have problems, with reactions. And besides the argan oil, we have frankincense essential oils and Palo Santo essential oils.
I'm wearing it now. I'm argan oiled up today. I'll put mine on. Like a lovely piece. All right, so I try it, find it, get it, keep it in your arsenal of other tools. So I want to go back and talk about you a little more, shall we? Because he's got more stories. I just got to the product so we can get the commercial out of the way. Because it's the cool stuff he's got. And if you're in Vilcabamba and you haven't talked to Dickson, ask him about his oils. And these are 60? How much are these about it?
There's 60 normally retail in outside of Vilcabamba, but because this is our home and the folks here are our family,
right?
We charge $40.
Come to that's another reason to come to Vilcabamba. And this one?
That is $65.
Okay. So that's that. But you have more stories.
We all have stories.
I want to hear your stories. What brought you to Vilcabamba?
Good friend of mine. We had a lot in common, and I had with my ex property in Fiji, exit strategy from the U.S. And she had property in Cotacachi or outside of Cotacachi, and property down here. And she split up with her boyfriend and decided to go back to Northern California. And she said, Dickson, are you interested in checking out the property? And I like adventure. So we came down to check out the two properties. Loved Ecuador, loved the Cotacachi area, loved Vilcabamba.
Yeah.
And it was a hard choice.
Oh.
But there was just the folks, to be outside of your country, and especially the folks in Vilcabamba, you're outside the box. Well, the folks in Cotacachi are outside the box, but there are way more variety of outside the box down here.
Okay. Well, it's interesting to have the variety of people that come to Vilcabamba. We call it Velcro Bamba for a reason, because people come and they stay, and the people that are drawn here, it's a conscious community, honestly, as Mike been experience, and that's what anchors people, and we can find other like minds who are doing cool stuff. Like I like to sit back here. I'm like, who builds sets like this? And just like, this is in their art in our town. And it's a town full of artists as well, and creatives. Scientists. Ooh, we got researchers. But you've been doing more than just C60. So what else did you get into play with?
You mean...
creatively, scientifically, what else you like to do?
Talk.
All right, tell us a story then. No, I could go anywhere with that one. Let me hint. You have some stories. You were telling me a story recently about disappearing, and I went, "What? How'd you do that?"
Okay, well, let me go back.
There we go.
As a kid, when I daydreamed, I astral project, popped out of my body to where I was going, or sometimes I'd see someone walk across the street, and then I'd look and they'd be gone, because I went from my pineal gland or wherever we have clairvoyance activated, but then I'd be, boom, a car drove by or somebody said something, and I'd be out of my daydream state. And I had, saw different folks walking around, discarnates, ghosts, whatever you want to call them. But it wasn't part of my jargon. My family was a long line of engineers, very grounded people, smart but grounded. And so when that sort of happened, it was put back here like Dream World. Well, when I was about 28, I was just, again, daydreaming with a friend, and all of a sudden, there's this deep blue aura coming out of him, or coming out of his body. I've gotten to a point where I am the aura. I'm the thoughts, feelings, all the energies, and pure spirit that are inside me. And I animate my body.
Good way of seeing that. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And we have an animal body that's
Yeah.
animated.
Right.
Anyway, so that put me, well, besides the aura, right after that, I see a face of a Chinese man. And it wasn't just seeing it. I was feeling like I was that person. I was inside that person.
That animation.
Right, that particular, and it later on I realized it wasn't a past life, and that was, by the way, was one of about 40. They came out, whoosh, and then I grokked it. I experienced who that person was in like just a matter of seconds.
Right.
So, and it was so deep and real. I just like didn't drop everything. I still ate. But my focus was on truth, because it was more true experience than
anything else.
Yeah.
That this world had to offer. Very interesting. And then you said 40 different.
Yeah, and different embodiments, which the way I look at it now, there's sort of like a time-space loop, Mobius strip. You know, eternities, past, present, and future. You know, Jesus said, I am, I was, I ever will be. That is true of all of us, but not Dickson. The soul, Christ within you, whatever words you want to describe that is something that you are. I am. Then I have a body. Or, as I perceive it, we have more than one body. They just aren't here. They're different places in the timeline. Is that out there enough?
No, well, it's out there, but we're still here trying to figure it out. That's the part that I find interesting, and the multidimensional expressions of ourself. That time is just kind of like another leaf. We're in all of these leaves, or the leaves are in all of us. It's an expression that is consistently spread. And I'm not even halfway trying to explain it right, because it is a complex concept. But
do you know how electrons in
around?
different atoms, you know, you have some of them that have many different bands or rings. It's sort of like orbits.
Orbits, right, okay.
So we could look at it as, okay, our densest body with all the calcium and iron and carbon and oxygen, that is, and we appear to see that as three-dimensional.
Right.
So high, so wide, so much depth.
Right.
Well, there's all the energy within that.
Yep.
Very dynamic. It's sort of like the electrons go into the proton and back out and back in and back out. Well, they're all, that is true on lifetimes. We go in, we go out.
Right.
You know, and it's sort of, as Ezekiel said, wheels within wheels, you know, microcosm within the macrocosm.
Yeah. So, in all of that expansiveness, we have this reality that we get to deal with. So when you are aware of those other beings, I've heard a statement about our multidimensional selves are all coming together. And I'm like, why? Why do they need to? And are we expanding or are we contracting?
Yes.
Both at the same time. I was afraid to say that.
Yeah, everything's alpha and omega. You know, it's like breathing. Are we breathing in or breathing out?
All right, so then let's look at, all right, so we're doing both at the same time, but let's look at that as a collective of our community, our world, our planetary existence, expanding and contracting at the same time. We know we're going through planetary changes, so I'm seeing that loop of that atom or the electron going, well, yes, we have an elliptical pattern, so we all go through it together, and then what? We just get to do it over and over again.
Pretty much. Maybe a bigger wheel.
Yeah. Well, yeah, expansive would be nice. with the awareness of your own multidimensional selves, what does that bring to you now?
I guess the one thing I've learned here in Vilcabamba is I was very go, go, go. 18 hours a day. Just, I worked in a couple of research institutes. I became a minister. I've done all sorts of pioneer work in various superfoods over 40 years. And anyway, just let's see, where was I going with that?
Multidimensional selves coming home. What's it bringing to this reality?
It was getting back. There's the going out and all this stuff. There's like an eye of a hurricane. I found peace.
And all of that.
Yeah.
So, well, and one thing I love about being here is that it is all of my life has brought me to enjoy this space. Those being here, those experiences, those outward lies. But when we come back to, okay, we're here, we're home, there is, nothing more but enjoying the day. It's kind of sound simple.
And making a choice where you want to go.
And where you want to eat.
Yeah, those are the big decisions down here.
It comes to that. Chop wood and carry water, but do it in someplace beautiful like Vilcabamba.
That's it.
That's the space that we are in. What are you working on next?
Well, I'm working with a physicist, chemist, and former gold refiner in producing the actual carbon-60.
Oh, you're going to make your own.
Yeah, and then because we've had a real hard time getting the raw material carbon-60 because there's been such a demand. So I was saying, we get a lot of word of mouth. People are hearing, oh, so-and-so, cancer's gone. I want some of that. Well, that's going on worldwide.
Right.
Though it hasn't really hit the, primetime news.
Right.
Because that would be a threat to the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
And
they start killing people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't mess with that mafia. Right.
It doesn't cure anything.
Yes.
It's for experimental purposes.
Exactly. Don't piss them off. Right. We'll leave it at that. It's experimental. Right. Okay. We're experimenting.
So that's the one thing I'm working on, that and enjoying my ducks, chickens, turkeys, a couple types of fish.
Yeah. You get fish in your pond?
Tilapia,
Okay.
60 tilapia.
Okay. Oh, they could be edible.
Well, they're about in about a year they've grown over a foot.
Yeah.
So
are you feeding them C60?
No.
I'm like, take care of it.
It's too expensive.
That's a lot of fish too, yeah. But I think a little bit in the water would be a little helpful. Could be. I'm just suggesting. Then I can eat the fish.
Actually, we filter after the mixing, sonicating, stirring, we filter it. And we do have a little bit of residue, we were thinking about just mixing that residue into like a salve for dogs, or it wouldn't be as pure and active, but there's...
I'm like, I want to try something myself, but I love that as an option for everything. One of the things I've been surprised about in Vilcabamba and Ecuador in general is the openness to CBDs are allowed to be sold in this country, where cannabis products which have a low THC count and a high CBD count are now under the medical use act that we can find locally in our shop. So I've been like, oh, good. So there is a little more openness in our country, my adopted country home, to bring products here. So did you have any requirements in going through their local FDAs here? Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, good. We'll leave it at that. They don't
It's
ask.
merely oil and carbon mixed together, and people use it for experimental purposes.
So no fighting with anybody. Okay, experimental purposes. Well, that's how we keep that. And it is our responsibility now to experiment with the things that are outside of the rules that are what's safe. You know, I loved my country for America, the United States of America as my home country, as what I understood as a leader in healthcare and protective systems. Well, I got the protection, but I didn't get leading in systems that made a difference. And we have a Western allopathic medicine system that is run by the pharmaceutical companies, and it has really managed health in a way that is not long living for us. And okay, we all know we're getting cancer, but it was the statistics that 1 out of every 2 women and 1 out of every 3 men in America would get cancer. And at that kind of speed, and we're still doing, the pink ribbon, doing research, I'm like, we would have figured this out by now. There's a guy in the Atlanta area, I believe, who's done a video series called The Truth About Cancer. And he's looked at all the alternative options that are out there, and I was familiar with about half a dozen of them after my cancer. But when I was going through cancer in 2005 initially, there wasn't a lot of options out there. And even my alternative medicine doc that I was using at the time gave me lots of supplements to counteract the chemo that I was going through. But I was like, well, and then I moved to California and started looking again and still had a hard time finding who had answers. I didn't realize at the time that pharmaceutical companies were kind of knocking off all the alternative medicine docs, so it was like it wasn't a safe place to even talk about these things in America. And it wasn't until I got to Thailand that I met some of those doctors who had left America in fear of their life, who were doing their work and continuing their practices. Mexico had been always doing it, but seeing those practices, and I went, oh, you mean these aren't allowed in the U.S. because the Western allopathic system had it locked down, you couldn't find the information. And I thought, being in California, and I did go up to Northern California, and I found a German-trained homeopathic chiropractor who basically told me get off of sugar and gluten because that's where the poisons were coming from. And even today, which is one of the reasons why it's my last Facebook, I can't post that in the cancer groups. I can't say it's the poisons that you're ingesting in your food that are causing it, because the groups are run by the pharmaceutical companies. And so their support groups, so anytime I tried to post an alternative option, they're like, you can only talk about chemo and dealing with that.
Cut, burn, and poison.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier the pharmaceutical system.
Yeah.
It's a system that wants to keep going.
Yeah.
They want to milk the cow forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are. But there's only so many of us you can kill at a time. I'm going, okay. One of the things I found interesting with the nanotechnology is that this is the alternative for solving our collapsing bodies. Is that give us nanotech to repair cells or do that. And I went, I don't want to go that route. And that's not the option I'm looking for. I'm looking for something a little natural that I can go, let it build as it's meant to be.
I was just going to say the powerful free radical scavenging of the C60 really allows the body to heal itself.
That's what we want to hear, right?
Is
there any area that it doesn't apply, which you would not use it for?
Well, my partner, Laura, she has macular degeneration, and that's one of the things that you just can't help, quote unquote. Well, they're finding that macular degeneration is being helped by carbon-60. It takes out whatever's there. It can take a while. I was just reading recently about cataracts are a lot easier, but they start breaking down as well. Okay. So, you can't say 3 months and your cataracts are gone, or 2 months your lung cancer's gone. I just took it because it was sounded good. And then I found out I had cancer, and I went from taking 1 milliliter a day to about 10. But there's, again, no 10 milliliters a day, your cancer's gone away. Or it's really experimenting, listening to other people's experiences. And if you go on the internet, there are tons of experiences. As I said, macular degeneration.
Right.
My sister in the States has got Lyme disease, which nothing helps. It's engineered, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they found there's been a lot of change. But I don't spend all my time doing C60. If I wanted to be more serious, I'd be spending 10 hours a day and catching up with all the new stuff that's coming out.
Right. Because you could spend 10 hours a day just keeping up with what's out. And this is one that I've known about for a couple of years, again, before I left Thailand. And and I remember a story I think I heard of NASA buying up all the C60 and trying not to make, like bullets in America, excuse me, that was bought up years ago. When our government buys everything, I'm like, what are they doing with it?
Well, lowering the supply for
everybody else.
Because I think I mentioned earlier, we've had a hard time getting 10 grams, and we've wanted to get 20, 30 or more grams just so we have a supply.
Right.
And all the big manufacturers were back ordered for months. One of the companies which we get our raw material from is Red Lion Bioceuticals? Biomedical. They, finally went and made 2 reactors, so they're making it themselves. But they're still months behind. They are expanding their capabilities, but all the biggest manufacturers.
Got it. Okay. And so you want to make your own yourself, though, yeah?
Yeah.
You're going to be doing it? All right. Are we going to be...
Vertical integration of our business model.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing the sciences with the lights and night and wild things going on coming out of your face. I have a little Frankenstein picture in my head of going, oh, we're making C60, we're making carbon explode or doing something fun like that. Not
well, that we're not going to do that here.
Oh, okay. That won't happen here. We'll have
our chemist physicist lives in Europe.
Okay. Let it happen in Europe. All right, good. We'll get it done there. All right. What else? Products that's keeping you busy. More research on that. Are you playing around with anything else that keeps your interest in Vilka?
I don't know. Besides animals, people.
Loving our little life here. It is a good little life here, and I recommend you come out and visit. How long have you been here?
I moved here 4 years ago, full time.
Full time.
I've been coming down for 5 years previous to that.
Okay. It's a good little town.
Yep, and one of those interesting things was 7 of us were talking and found out we're all from different countries. This is about a year and a half ago. I mentioned that to a couple other friends a couple days later, and we wrote down folks that we all knew from what countries, 69. And then the following day found out Axel was from Iceland. So as of a year and a half ago, there were folks from at least 70 countries in our little Andean village.
Yeah, it is. It is an amazing little Andean. And we have an ease of living here that I haven't felt anyplace else. And I don't get any easier. I'm less than 50 feet away from my bedroom right now. So I'm like, it can't get any more comfortable for me than that. What I like about it, A, that I don't have to drive. be that I really don't have to learn too much Spanish, though I'm getting better at it. C, that I usually get all the foods I want, and I can have a variety here in a small town. And I meet the most interesting people. That's the part I love most about this. And these little, you know, big brain folks that have, you ain't got no room, ain't got no room for hair anymore because they got so many brains. Like the smarter they are, they have more. That cerebral cortex starts showing. And so that's why I need to sit down and talk to them and go, okay, what you know, what you doing? So I'm glad you've got some good toys that are helping us. I love taking this in the morning and on an empty tummy. Is there any recommendation on dosage? That's the other thing. Because I learned how to muscle check, but if you don't know how to muscle check, how do you recommend people start using it?
Well, it's always good to start slowly. Generally, people say do a teaspoon a day. If you're a big guy, maybe a tablespoon.
Okay.
But it again depends on you. Everyone's got their own unique metabolism and needs.
Okay.
I start out with 1 milliliter a day. I was going to make that 100 milliliters last 3 months.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
if I hadn't gotten cancer, I might still be doing that. And then I started getting it. So I do generally about 6 droppers. That's probably 4 milliliters a day.
Okay. All right. I'm probably 2. I'm having 2 milliliters a day. I'm like, squirt, and get her in and get going.
Well, you know, you don't need a lot to have. They just sit there and go along and do their job.
Right. And if it's lasting in your system for a couple months. But how long before you start seeing changes? And I want to say a couple weeks when I could actually feel something was shifting in my body and my skin changed, and I was like, my nails started going. My roommate at the time, her hair started going black again, and it was gray before.
I keep thinking of more things. There's a gentleman friend, he's in his 70s. He's got the same hair stylist that I do.
Yeah.
He's getting his hair coming back.
Yeah.
There's a woman who just turned 70 who for the last 6 months has had, and maybe she doesn't want that, but her body regenerated enough. She's now getting regular periods
I was
again.
afraid you were going to say that.
I know, I mean, that's...
Cut back, Mama, cut back.
Well, doesn't mean she... Anyway. But did I don't know if I mentioned the telomeres.
No, we didn't.
Okay, this is very important.
Okay.
The C60 goes in and somehow works its way in and through chromosomes. And the tips of chromosomes are called telomeres. And it helps those tips, which become frayed, a little fuzzy. It's called genetic fading, when it's making a Xerox copy
Too often.
of a copy of a copy, so you lose resolution. Well, that's what's going on with our chromosomes and why you end up having a white beard instead of a red beard.
Got it. Okay.
And so this is helping the telomeres recohere.
Right.
Which, let me go back, something else very important. The part of the reason people are hearing so much about carbon-60 is there was tests done, not to see if carbon-60 can help us, but to see if it was toxic, because it's used in industry.
Right.
So some company, and I think it was in Italy, but they took rats and superdosed, well, they had control groups, and then the ones they dosed with carbon-60. Well, and these were all, young rats, but they ended up giving a bunch of carbon-60 to the test group. Well, the main group, a control group, was they lived out their life. I don't know, it was a year and a half, something like that. And okay, that's normal. Well, the ones they've been dosing with carbon-60 ended up living 3 years. And they were not getting paid to keep rats alive. They were getting paid to see if it's toxic. It's obviously not toxic when the rats already lived to be twice the normal lifespan. So they killed the rats.
Oh.
And they dissected the rats, and their organs were basically like adolescent.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, the good news, well,
that's a biggie. That's
a biggie. So that's part of the, you know, one of the things that started the ball rolling and people ingesting it. And, you know, bit by bit, you know, there's a man named Cliff High. He's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, he was, you know, death warmed over.
Yes.
And he heard about C60. He does some type of predictive programming, you know, going through the web with billions of bits of information. And he was seeing flurries of people checking out carbon-60. So he started taking it, and he was supposed to be dead of, you know, liver disease, and he's come back, you know.
Yes.
So
I've watched this show and watched him go through his cancer story and going, we can see the difference. He's alive and well.
And that's great for all us old folks, but it's even better if young folks did it.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean doing a bottle a day, or in fact, that's probably too much. There's some doctors that actually out there recommending taking, you know, if you're older, take a bottle a week.
Oof. Okay.
That's 100 milliliters.
Right.
And other people just say, you know, that's more steady, you know, 3 milliliters.
Okay. Depending on where your sickness is, and if you are definitely the older you are, and I'd say yes, up your levels. But here's another thing to consider: when you have young people have a faster issue with cancer, speeding up even quicker in the body, and juvenile cancer is always one of those that goes a lot faster and it's a lot speedier. So that's one of the stuff you want to kind of attack with it. Get it in. And when I was going through my chemo and watching young kids, you know, I saw them come in, but I saw them get sick really a lot faster than I did, and the chemo was killing them, you know, beyond the cancer. But I would have loved to have seen this go into their bodies instead of chemo. And even before I left America, I was talking to my oncologist who had said before he, in his career, he hoped to see us get away from chemotherapy and radiation. That was not working, but you know, they were making their car payments from it, so that's what they still had. And I didn't know about it then, but I'm so glad I know about it now, because I'm like, I need to rejuvenate the body. And my friends have said, boy, Ecuador looks good for you, and I'm like, I'm taking some stuff. I found some secret tools here, and so made that work. And this is one of the secret little weapons I got my hands on, and went, it's the C60, y'all, and the water, because we are in the valley of longevity after all, and we can do things here. We do have energies here that make it easier for us here. All right. Well, thank you, brother. That's what I wanted to know. You give me the stories I needed to tell. Can they order? Would you recommend? Do you ship out of the country, first of all?
Yeah, but it's a real hassle, and we don't want to. We've had.
We don't recommend it.
A dozen bottles to a couple of folks, and because they found out that our C60 worked for them better than what they were using.
Okay.
But any C60, you know, that's real C60, use it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Find it. Okay. I know I mentioned C70. You've heard about that coming up yet? The Chinese are making another version of it. So.
Well, I've only really heard about it through the website of Red Lion.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
And they say it tends to have more of they're a little more metaphysical. And they talk about it having more of a yin energy versus yang.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I really can't speak on that.
Okay. But when you get your hands on something, you'll let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be hooking up with him, and I'll let y'all know. All right, y'all, this is the last Facebook Live, so I like to bring in, and I will keep doing this. I'm just going to be moving to YouTube, so if you haven't followed me there, it's Phyllis Raleigh. It's pretty the same, so you can find me there. And Thursdays this afternoon, I will be on YouTube doing another interview with Gary Morgan, who is going to be talking about in integrating life after ayahuasca or any of those other plant medicines that are highly available in our area, and lots of people come here to do ayahuasca journeys, and then they have challenges because once you open that door of consciousness, you may see things you're not prepared for, and it's a tough one to go through. So we're going to be doing that this afternoon, so you'll see me again. And namaste, y'all. Don't do anything you're not supposed to do.
Namaste and namaste go.
Bye, y'all.